All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are going to take a deep dive into the automotive hall of shame.
Oh.
Specifically, Chevrolet's biggest design fails.
Ooh, this is going to be good.
We're talking about those cars that make you wonder if the design team was working with a blindfold.
Blindfolds
on
empty.
a dartboard.
Just throwing darts.
You know, the ones that even their mothers wouldn't love.
Wow. You know what's always intrigued me is how a company like Chevrolet, known for these iconic cars like the Corvette, the Camaro, could also release vehicles that looked like they were designed by a committee that had never actually seen a car.
Right.
Like they'd only heard rumors about what a car should look like.
It's like they had this split personality when it came to design.
Cool.
1 minute they're hitting home runs, and the next they're striking out with the bases loaded.
Yeah. Swing and a miss.
So to kick things off, let's go back to the 1970s.
Oh, the 70s.
A decade known for some questionable fashion choices.
Oh, yeah, some bold choices.
And apparently, some equally questionable car designs.
We're sure.
That's where we find the infamous Chevrolet Vega.
Ah, yes, the Vega.
The Vega!
Marketed as the little car that does everything well.
Wow.
Except well.
Except be a reliable car.
Do a reliable car? That's a pretty big exception.
You know you're in trouble.
Yeah.
When a car's claim to fame is its ability to rust faster than a ship at the bottom of the ocean.
It's true. The Vega was like the Titanic of rust buckets.
And the Vega's problems went way beyond just a little surface rust.
Oh, this was deep.
They tried to make a fuel-efficient engine.
Right.
But it ended up being about as reliable as a paper airplane in a hurricane.
Yeah, it was not ready for prime time.
What went wrong there?
Well, for starters, they used an aluminum engine block.
Okay.
Save weight, which was a pretty radical idea at the time.
That was cutting edge.
But the problem was the technology just wasn't there yet to cast aluminum engine blocks that could handle the stress and the heat. So the result was an engine that was prone to warping, cracking, and generally falling apart.
Wow.
To add insult to injury, the Vega's cooling system was also poorly designed.
Oh, no.
Which just exacerbated the engine's overheating issues.
So you're telling me they tried to be innovative, but ended up creating a car that spent more time in the repair shop than on the road.
It's like they invented the concept of buyer's remorse.
You've got to admire the ambition.
Yeah.
But the execution was a bit of a faceplant.
They swung for the fences and completely missed the ball.
Exactly.
And it seems like Chevrolet hadn't quite learned their lesson.
Oh.
Because just a few years later, they unleashed the Chevrolet Citation on an unsuspecting public.
Oh, the Citation.
The Citation.
This was supposed to be a game changer.
Yeah, they were really hyping this one up, riding on their new, highly touted X-Body platform.
The X-Body platform.
But what they delivered was less game changer and more game over.
Oh, the Citation. The car that single-handedly made station wagons look cool. I remember seeing those things on the road back in the day, and they always seem to have that, I've given up on life look about them.
They had a certain world weariness to them, didn't they?
Was the X-Body platform really that bad?
It wasn't all bad. The concept was sound. It was a front-wheel drive platform designed to be lightweight and fuel efficient.
Yeah. Which
was a big deal in the wake of the fuel crisis.
Right.
But the execution was, shall we say, less than stellar.
Oh.
The unibody construction, which was meant to be innovative, ended up being flimsy and prone to rust.
Oh, no.
And the suspension, which was designed for comfort, made the car handle like a boat in a bathtub.
So flimsy, rusty, and handled like a drunken hippopotamus on roller skates.
Pretty much.
But at least it looked good, right?
Well, about that, the Citation styling was about as exciting as a beige refrigerator.
Oh, no.
It was boxy bland and had all the aerodynamic grace of a brick.
Yikes.
The interior wasn't much better with cheap plastics and questionable ergonomics. That made even short trips feel like an endurance test.
So not only was the Citation a mechanical nightmare,
it really was,
but it was also a visual assault on the senses.
Yeah, it was an all-out assault on the senses.
It's like Chevrolet decided to take all the worst aspects of 1970s car design and cram them into one unfortunate vehicle.
Yeah, it was like a greatest hits album of bad design choices.
And to make matters worse,
it gets worse.
The Citation was plagued with reliability issues.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly with its transmission.
The transmission was a real weak spot.
Owners reported everything from slipping gears to complete transmission failures, often at very low mileage.
It was notorious for leaving people stranded.
It got so bad that the citation became the poster child for unreliable American cars in the 1980s.
It really did single-handedly tarnish the reputation of American cars for a while.
Wow, 2 strikes.
2 strikes?
And Chevrolet's already looking pretty shaky.
Yeah, their batting average is not looking good.
But they weren't done yet.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
They had more tricks up their sleeve.
Next up, we're taking a look at a vehicle that defies all logic and good taste.
Oh, boy.
The Chevrolet Lumina APV.
The Lumina APV.
Affectionately known as the Dustbuster on wheels.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
Seriously, look this thing up.
Yeah, Google it.
It's like someone designed a minivan by looking at a vacuum cleaner.
It's like they said, hey, let's make a minivan that looks like it's constantly trying to escape its own shadow.
And for some reason, everyone in the room said,
yeah,
that's a great idea.
It's baffling, isn't it?
The Lumina APV is a testament to the fact that sometimes it's better to stick with convention.
Yeah, sometimes the tried and true is the way to go.
The sloping nose.
The awkward proportions.
The sheer weirdness of it all.
Sheer weirdness.
It's like they gathered all the minivan design cues, threw them in a blender hit puree, and somehow forgot to add van into the mix.
They forgot the most important ingredient.
I can only imagine the conversations at the design studio.
Hey, let's make a minivan that looks like it's constantly trying to escape its own shadow.
Right.
And for some reason, everyone in the room said, yeah, that's a great idea.
It's like they were so focused on being different.
Yeah.
So determined to break away from the traditional minivan mold.
They wanted to break the molds, all right.
That they completely forgot about basic things like aesthetics and practicality.
They threw the baby out with the bathwater.
The Lumina APV is a prime example of what happens when you prioritize form over function.
Yeah.
To a degree that it becomes an art exhibit.
An art exhibit.
Instead of transportation.
It belongs in a museum, not on the road.
I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, they really swung for the fences on that one and missed spectacularly.
It was a bold experiment that went horribly, horribly wrong.
A swing and a miss.
So we've got the rusty, unreliable Vega.
Check.
The flimsy and awkward Citation.
Check.
And the minivan that looks like it was designed by a committee of Salvador Dali and Dr. Seuss. Now we're moving on to the era where Chevrolet tried to recapture its muscle car magic.
Ah, yes, the era of retro-inspired designs.
But ended up fumbling the ball harder than a butterfingered wide receiver. Yeah,
they tried to bring back the glory days, but it didn't quite work out.
Ah, yes, the era of retro-inspired design.
Where car companies tried to cash in on nostalgia by bringing back classic styling cues.
Right.
But like a bad cover band, sometimes the originals are just better.
And Chevrolet was definitely playing out of tune when it came to the Monte Carlo SS.
The Monte Carlo SS.
A car that tried so hard to be cool but ended up looking like your dad trying to break dance at a wedding.
Ouch.
What were they thinking with this one?
Well, the idea wasn't entirely terrible. The Monte Carlo had a history as a sporty coupe.
Right.
And in the late 1990s and early 2000s, there was a growing market for retro-styled muscle cars.
Yeah, for sure.
The problem was Chevrolet seemed to miss the mark on both the styling and the performance.
Yeah.
The design was a mishmash of curves and angles that didn't quite gel. And the performance, despite having a V8 engine, was underwhelming, to say the least.
So they took a car with a somewhat sporty heritage.
Yeah.
Slapped on some aggressive-looking bodywork.
They tried to make it look the part.
And hoped no one would notice that it couldn't actually back up its looks with any real performance.
Yeah, they were hoping to fool people with the looks.
I feel like I've seen this movie before.
It's a classic case of style over substance.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's a trap that many car companies have fallen into.
For sure.
But Chevrolet's missteps in the retro revival game didn't end with the Monte Carlo SS.
Oh.
Oh, no. They had another trick up their sleeve, and this one was even more baffling.
What is it?
The Chevrolet HHR.
Okay, you're going to have to refresh my memory on this one.
Okay.
The HHR.
The HHR.
It doesn't even sound like a car.
Right.
It sounds like something you'd find in a bowl of alphabet soup.
It stood for Heritage High Roof.
Heritage High Roof.
Which is a pretty grandiose name for a car that was essentially a PT Cruiser knockoff.
What?
Yeah, it was Chevrolet's attempt to cash in on the retro wagon craze, but it ended up looking like a pale imitation of the original.
Wait, so they saw the PT Cruiser, a car that was already pretty divisive in terms of its design.
Yeah, the PT Cruiser was a love it or hate it kind of car.
And thought, we could do that, but worse.
That's some next-level design hubris right there.
That's some serious confidence.
Yeah, they thought they could improve on the PT Cruiser somehow.
And it wasn't just the exterior that was a problem.
Yeah, the problems ran deep.
The HHR was cramped inside.
It was like a clown car on the inside.
Had questionable build quality.
The materials felt cheap and flimsy.
And offered a driving experience that was about as exciting as watching paint dry.
It was a real snooze fest behind the wheel.
So they took a design that was already pushing the boundaries of good taste.
Right.
Made it even more awkward.
He doubled down on the awkwardness.
And then somehow managed to suck all the fun out of driving it.
Yeah, they took a car that was already kind of a joke and made it even worse.
That's a pretty impressive feat of design failure.
It's like they were trying to win a prize for the worst car ever made.
But Chevrolet wasn't done with its retro experiments yet.
Oh no, not by a long shot.
They're ready for the Chevrolet SSR.
The SSR.
A vehicle so bizarre, it defies categorization.
This is where things get really weird.
Was it a convertible?
It had a retractable hardtop.
A pickup truck.
It had a tiny truck bed.
An escape pod from a bad sci-fi movie.
It looked like it belonged on another planet.
Oh, yeah, the SSR.
The SSR.
The car that looked like it was designed by a committee of people who had never actually seen a car before.
Right.
But had once read a description of one in a very poorly translated foreign language dictionary.
It's like they were working from a set of instructions that were written in hieroglyphics.
What was the thought process behind this one?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Were they aiming for some kind of retro-futuristic vibe?
Maybe they were trying to predict what cars would look like in the year 2050.
The SSR was a truly perplexing vehicle.
It was like a car from a parallel universe where design rules didn't apply.
It had a retractable hardtop.
Right.
A small truck bed.
Right.
And styling that was like a mix of 1950s diner and a 1980s arcade game.
It's like they raided a prop warehouse and just threw everything together.
It's like they took all the design elements that were popular in different eras.
Yeah.
Threw them in a blender, hit the randomize button.
And crossed their finger.
And said, let's see what happens.
Took it a design experiment gone wrong.
And what happened was a car that was so confusing and awkward.
So confusing.
That it made people's heads spin just looking at it.
It was like an optical illusion on wheels.
And let's not forget the price tag.
Oh yeah, the price tag was a real head scratcher.
The SSR was not cheap.
It was priced like a luxury car.
Which made its lackluster performance and questionable practicality even more baffling.
Yeah, you were paying a premium for a car that couldn't really do anything well.
So you're telling me that they created a car that looked like it was designed by a committee of drunk robots?
Pretty much.
Made it handle like a shopping cart full of bowling balls.
It was about as agile as a tank.
And then charged a premium for the privilege of owning this automotive abomination.
Yeah, it was like they were daring people to buy it.
Yeah. I'm starting to think that Chevrolet's design department in the early 2000s was some kind of secret society.
A secret society.
Dedicated to creating the most head-scratching vehicles imaginable.
Maybe they were trying to send us a message.
Well, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, it's definitely one way to look at it.
But to be fair, not all of Chevrolet's design fails were quite as spectacular as the SSR.
True.
Sometimes they just missed the mark in more subtle but equally baffling ways.
Yeah, they had a knack for making even the most ordinary cars look and feel kind of off.
Now we're venturing into the realm of trucks and SUVs, where Chevrolet's attempts at innovation often resulted in vehicles that were about as aerodynamic as a brick wall.
They were built for utility, not speed.
Exactly. Take the Silverado SS, for example. It was supposed to be the muscle truck that ruled the streets and the job site,
Yeah.
but it ended up being about as sporty as a dump truck.
It was like a bodybuilder in a tracksuit.
What went wrong there?
Well, they took a regular Silverado,
Yeah.
which is a perfectly capable work truck,
Right.
and tried to turn it into a performance vehicle by slapping on a bigger engine and some sporty-looking trim.
Okay.
But they forgot about things like suspension tuning, weight distribution, and aerodynamics, which are all essential for a truly sporty driving experience.
So they basically put a cheetah engine in a rhinoceros body and hoped no one would notice that it couldn't actually run very fast.
Pretty much, they were all about the looks, not the performance.
That's a pretty accurate analogy. The Silverado SS looked the part, but it couldn't back it up with any real performance. It was all show and no go.
A classic case of style over substance.
Speaking of trucks that were all show and no go, let's talk about the Avalanche. It was a truck, an SUV, and a convertible, all rolled into one awkward package.
The Avalanche, oh boy.
What was the design inspiration for this one? A transformer that got stuck halfway through its transformation.
It's like they couldn't decide what they wanted it to be.
The Avalanche was another example of Chevrolet trying to do too much with one vehicle.
Yeah, they were trying to be everything to everyone.
They were trying to appeal to truck buyers, SUV buyers, and convertible enthusiasts all at the same time.
And they ended up appealing to no one.
And the result was a Frankensteinian monster that didn't really satisfy anyone.
It was a mishmash of different ideas that just didn't work together.
The midgate feature.
Yeah, the midgate.
Which allowed you to fold down the rear wall of the cab to create a larger cargo space, was innovative.
It was kind of cool in theory.
But it also compromised the structural integrity of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And made it look like it was constantly in a state of disrepair.
Yeah, it looked like it was falling apart.
It was a truck with an identity crisis.
It didn't know what it wanted to be.
It couldn't decide whether it wanted to haul hay bales or cruise down the beach with the top down.
It was trying to be too many things at once.
And that design, it's like they took a pickup truck, an SUV, and a station wagon, put them in a blender, and hit the puree button.
And then forgot to add any seasoning.
The Avalanche was a bland and uninspired design, even by Chevrolet's standards.
It was the automotive equivalent of a plain bagel.
But hey, at least it was practical, right? I mean, you could haul lumber, take the kids to soccer practice, and then cruise down the highway with wind in your hair, all in the same vehicle.
In theory, yes, but in practice, It wasn't particularly good at any of those things.
And I'm guessing it wasn't exactly fuel efficient either. A giant boxy vehicle with a convertible top sounds like a recipe for a gas-guzzling nightmare.
Yeah, it was about as fuel efficient as a Hummer.
So we've got the Silverado SS, the muscle truck that couldn't muscle its way out of a wet paper bag, and the Avalanche, the vehicular equivalent of a Swiss Army knife that was missing all the useful tools. What other gems has Chevrolet hidden away in its design graveyard?
Well, there's the Trailblazer, an SUV that tried to be both rugged and refined, but ended up being neither.
The Trailblazer?
It was like a lumberjack in a tuxedo.
I remember those. They were everywhere for a while, and then they just kind of vanished.
They disappeared into the automotive ether.
What happened there? Did they suddenly realize that putting a luxury badge on a truck doesn't magically make it luxurious?
Pretty much, the Trailblazer suffered from an identity crisis similar to the Avalanche.
Oh, no.
It was trying to appeal to both off-road enthusiasts and luxury buyers.
Right.
And it ended up alienating both groups.
So they were trying to straddle two very different markets.
And they fell right through the middle.
The design was uninspired. The interior was cheap and plasticky.
Yeah, it felt like a rental car.
And the driving experience was underwhelming.
It was about as exciting as driving a minivan.
It was like they took a Chevrolet Tahoe, tried to make it look like a Cadillac Escalade, and ended up with a vehicle that was about as appealing as a week-old salad.
It was a design disaster.
And then there was the HHR panel van.
Oh, the HHR panel van.
Which was basically a Chevrolet HHR with no windows in the back.
It was like a mobile prison cell.
I'm not sure what they were thinking with that one.
It's a mystery.
Was that some kind of misguided attempt to appeal to the hipster delivery driver market?
Maybe they were trying to be ironic.
Hey man, check out my vintage-inspired panel van. It's got like a retro vibe, you know?
It's like something out of a Wes Anderson movie.
I think they were going for a more practical, work-oriented vehicle.
Yeah, they were trying to appeal to small businesses.
But the execution was just bizarre.
It was like they took a perfectly good car and made it worse.
I mean, who needs a retro-styled panel van?
No one.
I guess it would be perfect for hauling around vintage typewriters and vinyl records.
Maybe for a hipster Etsy shop.
But it still looks like a bad idea on wheels.
It's a design fail for the ages.
Okay, so we've got trucks that can't truck SUVs that are neither sporty nor utilitarian, and panel vans that are more about style than substance. It seems like Chevrolet's design team in the 2000s and early 2010s was on a mission to create the most perplexing and confounding vehicles imaginable.
They were on a roll.
Is there any hope for Chevrolet's design future, or are they doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past?
Well, I'm not a fortune teller.
Right.
But I think Chevrolet has shown some signs of improvement in recent years. They've released some well-designed and well-received vehicles like the new Corvette and the Camaro.
Yeah, those are definitely some bright spots.
But they still have a long way to go to erase the memory of some of their design disasters.
That's a good point. They've definitely had some hits lately, but they've also had some misses. The Bolt, for example, is a technologically advanced electric car, but it's about as exciting to look at as a washing machine.
It's very utilitarian.
And the Trax is an SUV that's so generic, it practically fades into the background.
It's the automotive equivalent of beige paint.
It seems like Chevrolet is still struggling to find a consistent design language.
Yeah, they need to figure out what they stand for.
They're trying to appeal to a wide range of buyers.
Right.
But in the process, they're losing sight of what makes a car truly great, a combination of style, performance, and practicality that resonates with people on an emotional level.
They need to find the heart and soul of their brand.
So the lesson here is that even a company with a rich history of automotive innovation like Chevrolet can fall into the trap of design by chasing trends and forgetting about the basic principles of good design.
It's a cautionary tale for all car companies.
Exactly. It's a reminder that design is not just about aesthetics. It's about creating a holistic experience that connects with people on a deeper level.
It's about creating cars that people love.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Chevrolet's design disasters. We've had a lot of fun roasting some of the most questionable vehicles ever produced.
Yeah.
But hopefully we've also learned a few things along the way. Maybe, just maybe, our collective roasting will inspire Chevrolet to raise their design game and avoid creating any more automotive abominations. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride.
It's been a pleasure.